So there are some more Boolean statements we need to be aware of. If we want to say while something is true and something else is true. So if I want my bump switch and my limit switch to be pressed at the same time, if I want both to be true to turn my motor on, for example, or if I say either one, I could say I want my bump switch or my limit switch. There are statements we can use. And so let's call them Boolean statements. And we'll say Boolean statement and. What we would use is our ampersand sign. So I'm going to draw it real quick. You should probably watch me draw it a couple times before you try. But basically what you do is you draw a backwards S, and then you connect that through. Do it again, backwards S, and then connect it through. I'm going to draw it a couple more times in red so you can see how to draw it for my live audience here. Again, draw this backwards S, and then just connect it through. One more time, I'll show it. Backwards S, connect it through. But anyway, you only need two of them, so don't worry about that. If you write two ands in your code, it says this statement needs to be true and this other condition needs to be true. There's a similar thing for the Boolean statement for or. We would use, you're just going to draw it as two vertical lines. Those aren't L's, those aren't I's. These are known as our pipe keys. The pipe keys is above your enter button on your keyboard. You use the shift button to operate it. So what is he talking about? If you look at a keyboard, you look at the enter button right here, you see it has that, I guess is that a forward slash or backward slash? The other kind of slash other than this one. Above it is that vertical line. That's the pipe key. You use shift to hit it. Hit shift and then that button, and it hits. Clear as mud. And the next thing I want to talk about is timers, and then we'll do another example code using these Boolean statements and a timer. So what is a timer? Well, we'll say, okay, timers in Robot C are just interval stopwatches. When you're using Robot C, if you actually open up in your debugger window, you know how you open up your motors and sensors, you can open up timers as well. You'll see that there are actually four of them. So we'll say Robot C uses or has 4 of them. Robot C essentially has 4 timers to utilize while you're working. So let's write a code to see how we use and how we use a timer. And so we'll say, okay, task main, open and close your parentheses, and then open a bracket. And the first thing you want to do if you're going to use a timer is you want to clear your timer. In other words, reset it. And so we'll have the code automatically clear one of our timers. So lowercase c, uppercase T, timer. And then we'll put in parentheses, timer 1. Semicolon. That way, as soon as the code starts, we know the timer will be at 0. Now, let's put a while statement down. So we'll say while, parentheses. Let's say while our timer 1, so time 1, and then we'll say T1 in a boxed parentheses. So I guess box brackets, T1. While T1 is less than 30,000. Now, for the record, your timer counts in milliseconds. So when you do it this way, if you do wait, you can do wait in milliseconds if you want, but usually the standard is regular seconds. When you're using your timer, it will be done in milliseconds. So what does this actually say? While the timer is less than 30 seconds. I want to make something else true as well to make our condition true. So let's use our and signs. We have to use 2 of them. So we'll use that ampersand. We'll draw that backwards S, and then draw through. And then we'll do it again. Let me fix that. Draw our backwards S, and then draw it through. Okay, and Let's say our bump switch is also not pushed. So while the timer is less than 30 seconds and our bump switch is not pushed. So to write a while statement for a sensor, you start by writing sensor value, capital S. And this is one of the few exceptions of using the first word with a lowercase first letter. You'll see it when you do it in your code. It'll correct it for you. It'll tell you it should be capitalized. It's just something you got to remember. But while the sensor value for the bracket, we'll use box brackets, for the bump switch, capital S, is equal to 0. So while your sensor value bump switch is 0, and while the timer is less than 30,000, I want to say, let's open up another bracket for ourselves for our while statement. Remember, your while statements don't have semicolons. They have brackets, curly braces. Let's say we want to turn the flashlight on. So turn, uppercase flash, light, uppercase O, on. And then parentheses, we'll name our flashlight, lowercase f, because now it's the first word, comma, power, we'll just say full power, 127. Close our parentheses, semicolon. And then we can close our while statement. And then underneath this, I'm just going to say, lining up with my previous while statement here, notice these are indented. I'm going to go back to where my previous lines of code were. Turn the flashlight off at the end of the code. So turn, uppercase F, flashlight, uppercase O, off, parentheses, flashlight, and then close your parentheses and add another semicolon. And so what is this? Oh, and then we need to close our overall task. So below that, we add another curly brace closing it. So we opened our code, we opened our while statement, we closed our while statement, we closed our code. Again, don't forget fixed formatting is your best friend in this. But let's diagnose what this actually says. As long as I don't push the bump switch after I start the code, for 30 seconds, the flashlight will be on. After 30 seconds go by, we leave this, we turn the flashlight off, the code ends. Or if at any point I push the bump switch, it immediately leaves this and turns the flashlight off and ends the code. Either statement becomes false, we leave our while statement and go to turn flashlight off.